the Dak and Deshaun thing, it's funny that you guys quickly dismissed it.
Yeah.
They're making almost the same money, though, Jay.
I know they are.
I would
That's
very
why,
similar money.
Yeah, very similar.
This is why I would not do
I mean, Watson's is guaranteed.
I don't see Dak Prescott.
The Cowboys wisely have outs in their contract.
I don't see Dak Prescott with the mentality to get me where I need to go.
It's just funny that we said that because here's a guy in Dak that,
He's had far more success.
way more success. I mean, you can argue that
Better tools.
certainly better players around
better
him.
tools.
But I don't know. You guys quickly dismissed it out of hand. Chris said that he would still stick with Deshaun. My concern is so high that we never see that same Deshaun Watson. That I'll take the devil I know versus the devil I don't.
You got a legitimate concern. Now, I was just thinking about something when Chris was talking about it. Would Baltimore swap quarterbacks with Dallas?
What's that?
Would they swap? You know how you can sign a person and then say we get the money close to. Would you swap?
That was my question.
Would you know? Would the Ravens swap with the Cowboys?
Oh, with the Ravens? I don't know. I mean, he's not signed, so you'd have to sign him.
It's like a sign and trade. Like,
Yeah,
it's like that. It's like that. I mean, would you do that? Because see, myself,
I don't know. In Baltimore's,
I don't know if I could go back with Lamar in Baltimore. The message that went down in the playoffs.
I think he's damaged the locker room.
I do too. I think there's bridges that are on fire.
And I talked to people with the Browns with Baker and said the locker room has been damaged. How do you come back from that? The locker room is broken.
Because the guys
better than anyone.
The guys who was lining up with expected him to show.
That's right.
And he was like, I'm not showing.
Yeah.
So he like, screw you. I'm not coming.
It's funny how all the guys in other places in the league understood it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mentioned last week the RG3 tweet where he said, this is what happens when you play with a damaged MCL.
Yeah.
I know. It ended my career. Here's the picture from it. It's pretty gruesome. But you didn't hear a lot of his teammates coming out and saying, hey, we get it, man. We get it.
Right.
And that's interesting. And I think there is damage.
They expect for him to show. So that's why I go back to it. I said, would you swap your Cowboys? Would you swap Dak Prescott for Lamar?
I think probably from the Ravens' perspective, there's a lot of frustration over this contract situation, and so maybe they'd be open to it because.
Could you imagine Lamar in Dallas? The media would break. It would break. Every network would melt down.
Yeah.
And you know what? Jerry would pay him whatever he wants.
Yeah, because
Jerry would
he's the
guarantee
kind
the
of player
contract
that
and
Jerry
pay him
would
whatever he
say
wants.
at the news conference, this fella should have had a star on his helmet from jump.
Yeah.
You could almost hear it.
Yeah.
It
Do you
would be
think Dak
interesting.
could win a championship in Dallas, though, or is that ship completely
I
sailed?
think
You
the
mean-
change of scenery could benefit both.
I think Dak's days in Dallas are done. They're done, right? If I heard the tempo last night, it was like this. We're sick of this.
Well, you know what was really – if you had forgotten how sickening their loss was last year, you were reminded of it this weekend when they kept showing the exact same thing happened. Last year it was a terrible mental mistake. Dak decided to run the ball in the middle of the field
yes.
to get it close, and they never got the snap off. And it's almost like Groundhog Day when Bill Murray hit the alarm clock. Here you are, fast forward through 364 days and a whole season. You're back here again. You've got it in your hands. You have a chance to make it right, and you don't. And that's frustrating. We saw the Cowboy fan who's buying a new television this morning. I imagine there were a lot of TVs that were broken in the Dallas-Fort Worth area while that game was playing out.
How is last night's outcome different if Pollard doesn't get hurt? That was a huge blow.
That was a big blow. We haven't even talked about
It was
that.
6-6 when he went out.
Yeah.
They were driving. After that,
No, that's
they
a
averaged like 3.5 yards per
Very
play.
fair question. And what it struck home, Bull has been saying this for a very long time. I don't have the number in front of me because it's on our text tweet. It was about 10,000 tweets ago, texts ago. But Bull had texted that on his last 40 carries before this game,
I got it. Hold on. It's
Zeke
even
had
better. It's even better
74
now.
yards rushing, if my memory is right.
It's even better now. Give me 1 sec.
So it was 40 rushes, 74 yards. And So this is an apple and apple comparison because you've got a guy in there that's also getting a lot of work.
Zeke's-
and Pollard's running crazy over people.
Zeke's not coming back to Dallas, right?
Part of that also is they use Zeke in short yardage.
They
goal
do.
line
He's the
situations.
short yardage back now.
So when you're at the 2 and
You're
you
not
get
going
the
for
ball,
breaking plays.
you're not
You're going
getting
for 1
6,
yard.
7 yards. So I think that's a little misleading.
It is.
But at the same time, Pollard's the better back. I think it's pretty evident.
And
Pollard's
here's
better
the
back.
issue. Pollard's clearly the better back. The Cowboys signed Zeke to a long-term extension.
They did.
If they cut him this offseason,
Cost him how
if
much?
$12 million in dead
that's-
cap space.
that's so punitive.
He's making 18. Dak's under contract for 4 more years at $40 million per. And over his last 6 games, Zeke averaged 2.6 yards per carry, 82 carries, 213 yards. It's over the
That's-
final 6 games of this season.
Mikey,
Yeah,
that's
that's-
Mikey.
that's
That's why I said Dak is a perfect swap for Lamar, right? Dak can unload that $40 million because you're going to pay Lamar some crazy sum of money, right? There's your swap. Zeke Elliott, they're not bringing Zeke Elliott back to Dallas. It's not, right? They're going to figure a way out of it, right? Because his production is not there.
Jay, though, how much does it change things in Baltimore that, and Chris talked on it, Dak's much more hesitant to run post-injury than he was pre-injury. And let's face it, it's the mix of those skills that make Dak.
Yes.
And it's the mix of those skills that make Lamar.
Yeah.
And when one of those erodes, or you're not going to use it for fear of injury, you put a whole lot of pressure on the other one. And we've seen that,
But conversely, Dak's a better downfield passer than
he is a
Lamar
better downfield, but no question about that.
So that sort of balances out a little bit. It's a fascinating. I mean, I didn't even think of it until you mentioned it. It's a fascinating debate.
And Jason, you know this. Sometimes, I don't care, sometimes you just have to go.
Yeah, you need to change the scenery.
It's not working here for you.
But
for whatever
sometimes
reason.
you hit the reset button, and next year
Well,
you come out and you're 7-11, and then you got a fan base, 7-10, you got a fan base saying, why the hell did you blow it up?
They tried to reset with Dak a number of times in Dallas, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday was the last time, right? So I have to think that they're thinking, how can I do it? It's just like us. We cannot stay at the bottom. The Browns cannot stay at the bottom of the division. You have to make moves now, right? You can't deny them. You can't squint your eyes and say this is working. This is not working, right? That's why I keep going back to, and Kevin might be the nicest guy. I need an OC here that I have confidence in. I don't have confidence in him. Now, he may coach up inferior players, right? I haven't seen him coach up.
What's ironic about that is the last head coach we had that had any real playoff success here was Marty Schottenheimer.
Mm-hmm.
Marty's tenure here ended because he refused to hire an offensive coordinator. He refused to give up play calling. Art laid down the law. You're going to hire somebody that's going to handle that. And Marty said, no, I'm not. And Marty was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And now,
And they never found one as good.
and
They
we
never found a head coach as good.
We haven't. I mean, Belichick was here for a span,
Yeah.
but never had that kind of success.
Right.
Went on to have great success.
Right.
But it is interesting that in the annals of Browns history, the last time we had a real live NFL head coach that put fear into the other team, his tenure here ended over
Play calling.
play calling.
There's so many different ways to do it. There's no one way that is the way. Teams have success a multitude of different ways. And how I said it before, when I was covering Ohio State, Trussell stood 35 yards away from the play with his back to the field, looking at his play sheet when he was the head coach. Nobody ever said a word. Nobody ever said a
While
word.
they were winning.
Yeah.
Winning hides warts.
It does. Always.
And losing
Exposes them.
puts a spotlight on every
Expose
wart
them.
you have.
Yeah.
And
Expose them.
what we've seen, and it's so funny because when Chris said this, I thought, you know what? And I know every team can play the what-if game.
Right.
But literally, you change the outcome of 3 plays. 3. And the Browns are 10-7. 3 plays.
Fall on the onside kick.
Fall on the onside kick.
Or don't miss the
Njoku-
extra. There's about 6 plays in the Jets game, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, but I'm just going to give you 3. Just 3.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Njoku drops a touchdown pass.
Saints. Yep.
Against the Saints
Yep.
that wins that game.
Yep.
Now you're at 9
Yep.
and 8, which, by the way, was the cutoff.
Right.
And I'll guarantee you, off the top of my head, just thinking in all of the other losses, there has to be one play in all of those games.
The pick in the end zone against
The pick in the end
Chargers.
zone.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
That's 3. And then
And now you're 10
Or
and
Cade
7.
York missing the field goal against the Chargers.
Yeah, but you also made a field goal against a long field goal against the Panthers.
Well,
so,
but I'm just saying, you said pick certain plays.
Yeah,
There's
right.
one play you
Right.
can
I
pick.
mean,
The
and I know every team can do this. Every team
right.
can do the one play.
the pass interference on
game.
Amari against the Ravens.
That's a terrible call.
Terrible call.
I thought it was a
So,
terrible
I mean,
call.
that's why when you try to figure out how much space is between the Bengals and the Browns, we were 7-10. We're 4 plays from being 11-6, and we match up well against the Bengals. I don't know why. You know what? I think that for divisional games, we've held our own the last 3 years.
Part of it is the Browns know the Bengals so well.
Well, they know us so well.
Right, but I'm saying like all these teams, the Bengals are dominating everyone else in football. Well, they don't see them as often. So the Browns just know the tendencies, I think, a little bit more.
Well, the
than
Chiefs have played the
would,
Bengals.
or than the Bills would.
When the Chiefs play Cincinnati on Sunday, they're going to have played them the same number of times that the Browns have over the last 2 years.
Is that right?
Well, they played them twice last year. They beat them this year.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So there will be 4. They'll have 4 games. If the
they should know
Bengals go
them
to the
well.
Super Bowl, the Chiefs against the Bengals are going to be 0-4, and the Browns against the Bengals are going to be 3-1. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if Kevin has uber focus in these divisional games, which are so critical to a team's success. But if you go 3-3 against a division that collectively won 38 games, that means that on average, these teams won 9.5 games. You're going 3-3 against your division.
Mm-hmm.
Why the hell can't you go 500 or better against the rest of the league, which isn't as good as Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Baltimore? It's a focus. It's just we're so close. It's frustrating. It's maddening how close this team is.
Jay, but it doesn't feel close.
No, because it's 2 years in a row of underperforming, and it's culture. And I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with a guy who's played in the NFL, now he works in the media, and he said, and I had made the point that why is it that the Browns always seem to lose those games? He says, well, the answer is right in front of you, because they always lose those games.
Yeah.
Why is it that Tom Brady always wins those games? In those close and late games, you're pre-programmed to do the things that get you over the hump. And the Browns culture is, we don't know what's going to happen, but something's going to happen.
They got to figure out a way to kick down the door.
And I thought we did when we
I
made
thought
the
so, too.
playoffs.
I
I thought,
thought so,
okay, now the boat is turning away from the iceberg.
Yep.
And now it's like we're headed right back to the iceberg and we're real
And
close
I think
to
I
it.
mentioned it before when the Jets, the debacle against the Jets. Clowney went off in the locker room and said, a bunch of losers, nobody knows how to win, the culture sucks. It wasn't wrong, but that's not helpful in the moment. You know, he is one of those veteran leaders who should be more helpful and assertive and help set the right culture. But that's just the feeling in the locker room. If there's a way to lose, they will find it.
And
that's what you have to change.
That was the most devastating loss
Totally agree.
I can remember in my lifetime that wasn't a playoff game.
Totally agree.
It was the
And they felt
most
it internally,
damaging.
too. They felt that.
The other thing, the Browns are the recipient of that because that permeates around the league. Players not coming around here where the culture is not right, and they say the Browns, you go down there.
Well, Watson did
Well, he did for what reason?
for the money.
That's right. Well, they're gonna serve up everybody. Can't.
They don't have enough now.
Can't do it.
They don't have enough to go around now.
Can the Chiefs win if Mahomes isn't healthy?
It's going to be real
Not
tough.
80%?
I don't think so.
If he's out on the field, they can win. If he doesn't play, no, they're not going to win. I think
he needs to be his best because I think they're getting the best team in the AFC.
I'll tell you
I think
what.
Right now, Cincinnati is.
the Mahomes that we saw in the second half couldn't move.
No.
If that's the
Everything
version,
was 2 steps and throw.
Yeah.
2 steps and throw.
I saw plays where there was
He
opportunity to just step up,
He throwing off one leg.
couldn't move. So if that's the Mahomes that
and
you
the
get on
Cincinnati
Saturday,
defense is better than Buffalo's
yeah,
defense.
especially across the front four.
So I've got a real concern. I think Cincinnati should be favored by a touchdown. I don't know what's the line.
They're getting
Chiefs are favored by
1.5 last
1.5.
Ooh, load up on that.
Well, they say you got a high. you have a high ankle
Load up on
sprain.
that.
You got a high ankle sprain here. You know, and so they said. I think the word on the street was that he's feeling much better today, right? Well,
Well, they don't say that.
what? I said, okay, a high ankle sprain. What are you gonna do? Right?
They're not going to say, "Boy, we're screwed." He woke up today and he sucks. He didn't feel good.
Look at this video. This is so good.
Yep.
They're changing the report card on Mahomes. That is so good.
Yep.
You're crazy.
That's my favorite date.
Oh, God. I thought it was pretty interesting that the Chiefs medical staff took a stand and said, absolutely not.
Yeah, and I give Andy Reid kudos. He's
Yes.
like, you're not going back in.
The medical staff and Reid and everybody involved in that decision made the right decision, where we've seen
the other way.
Miami Dolphins this year sticking Tua back out onto the field when he had no business being on that field.
Mm-hmm.
And what ultimately happened, it cost Miami their season.
Mm-hmm.
Because had they left Tua out a week or two to fully recover and not suffer that second concussion, which was devastating,
Right.
and we saw the effects of that, maybe at the end of the year he's able to play. And by the way, the coaching job of the postseason, even though it was in one game and in a defeat, may have been McDaniel in that loss. Because I still don't know how they kept that game as close as they did.
Yeah.
With a third-string quarterback, they had no business being in that game.
Yeah.
And there they were.
The Bills helped. Josh Allen was sloppy with the ball.
Now, what are they
that
saying
game.
in Buffalo this morning?
Scratching their head.
Because if they're thinking about, not that they're going to blow up what's going on in Buffalo, and they had the misfortune of, they went out and said, what piece is missing from this puzzle? Well, Von Miller. They got him, and he got hurt. Von Miller makes a difference in that game yesterday. I'm not saying that he makes such a difference that they win, but it changes the entire complexion of that game because they're able to get pressure where they were otherwise unable to do it.
There's disappointment in Buffalo, certainly. I thought they were in the Super Bowl. I thought this was their year. And now another year goes by where they don't even get there. So just like, I do think there's going to be questions about the Chiefs. If they lose this game and they don't get back, I think there's going to be questions about underperformance and not meeting expectations.
There absolutely will be.
And certainly, I said, is Mahomes overrated? I shouldn't have said that. No, at no point is Patrick Mahomes overrated.
Is the Reid-Mahomes combination the right one moving forward? Is the question that I think some will start to ask. Guys,
I think overrated was the wrong word. I think underperformed is what Jason was looking for.
Here's the problem, and this is what we fail to even grasp here, which is why I'm so concerned that this isn't going to end in a Super Bowl for the Browns. This AFC is as stiff a competition in one conference as I can ever remember in my lifetime. And I watched Manning and Brady operate in the same conference with Ben Roethlisberger for years. If Ben Roethlisberger had been in another time, how many Super Bowl rings does he get? He's got to compete with Manning and Brady every single year. I think what's in the AFC right now, quarterback-wise, is better than what we had for the 15-year stretch or whatever it was, 12-year stretch, where we had Manning, Brady, and Roethlisberger in the AFC.
It's deeper now. I would take those three against any top three of any era. But I think it just runs deeper now.
Because in Manning and Brady, you probably have two of the all-time greats ever.
And Roethlisberger's a Hall of Famer,
But, Mahomes' trajectory, God, we don't know what it is.
Right.
I mean, when we watch him, he does things that no one else has ever done.
He looks elite.
These no-look passes, these jump passes, these run up to the line of scrimmage, get the defense to collapse, and then, it's incredible what this guy can do. What's missing in Kansas City?
A defense.
I think that's it too. They've spent so much capital on the
A little bit more
offense.
of a running game in the defense.
Yeah, but you know what? I like that. Is it Pacheco?
Pacheco.
God dang, I like his style.
Yeah.
Seven round out of Rutgers.
I know he is, and he showed a top gear in that run down the sideline. He showed a top gear that, and they said he ran 4.29 at the combine. Like, I think it's more the defense that's missing. I think the run game's pretty good.
How about McKinnon on the blocking? As a small guy, picking up the linebacker coming in.
Undersized and just blowing guys up that are 40 pounds heavier.
But to get back to what you were talking about, the depth of the quarterback play in the AFC, that's why Deshaun Watson is here. Because the Browns said the same thing. The Browns looked at the roster of AFC quarterbacks and said, we have to get better or we have no chance.
I know, but
had it not been that deep, they may have tried to roll with Baker.
You know how in baseball at the trade deadline, oftentimes the Guardians are asking this question. Is it winnable?
Yeah.
Right.
Are we one player away?
Right.
If we are, let's make the move.
Andrew Miller trade.
Andrew Miller. Other years, they've inexplicably stood silent. Last year was an example. I think they probably were looking at the Yankees, who were in a dive at that point, but not what they eventually hit in August.
Yeah.
I think they were looking at Houston and the Yankees and saying, we're outplaying ourselves. We're not a player away.
Yes.
Why would we make that all-in desperation move when in all likelihood, it ain't going to happen this year.
Right,
and
yeah.
as close as they came to making it to the ALCS, let's face it, Houston would have destroyed the Guardians. So I wonder, on one hand, yes, we got to do something. Everybody around us has these generational quarterbacks. But was this the move to make at this time?
Here's why they think yes. When they were interviewing head coaching candidates, when Kevin got the job, they were telling the candidates we're 90% of the way there. They felt like they were 90% of the way there. They had everything else in place. Now, obviously, they were not 90% of the way there. They've already fired the DC. They already changed quarterbacks. But they felt like they had almost everything in place. They needed the right coach to tie it all
So they
together.
thought he was the missing link.
They thought Kevin was the missing link.
And you know what?
And clearly,
Under-
then they
under-
changed their mind and got rid of Baker
Jay,
and went to Deshaun.
Under normal circumstances, I would have been okay with that. And here would be normal circumstances. Deshaun didn't have 24 women accusing him
Right.
of what they accused him of.
Right.
He hadn't been out of football for a year, what ended up being almost 2 years.
Yeah.
If he was coming off that MVP caliber season the year before,
Yeah.
and there were no issues, no baggage, no court cases, I think then that move would have made perfect sense.
Yeah.
But because of all the extraneous stuff, I just think it gives you more reason to pause and to look back now and say, what have we done?
So then, what's your move? Where do you go? Because if they came to the conclusion Baker is not in this class of Mahomes, Josh Allen, we have to get better at that spot. If it's not him, I don't know what the other move.
And I
was.
don't either.
Neither do I.
And that's why they did. That's why they did what they did.
But
and without all those accusations, I'm not sure he's here. He's probably elsewhere.
Probably is, because
another
somebody
team
else
probably
would have paid
goes
him.
somewhere else.
But to make a move, just because you have to make a move, is the wrong reason to do it.
But they feel like they're all in. Nick Chubb's in the prime. Myles Garrett's. They have 3 Hall of Famers on this roster, I think.
That's
Guys
why
will be
it's
in
a
the Hall
damn
of Fame.
shame they've played in 2 playoff games.
Nick Chubb's going to the Hall of Fame at his trajectory. He has to do more. Myles Garrett's going to the Hall of Fame at his trajectory.
Joe
Joe
Bitonio.
Bitonio's going to the Hall of Fame.
He's a Hall of Famer.
You got 3 Hall of Famers on this, and you have 1 playoff win. And that's the urgency. We have to do this right now. We have to fix
But
this
you know
quarterback
what?
spot right now.
All of those
And
guys
the
are
only-
aging out.
And the only option that was available to them was damaged. But he was the best of what was available to them.
It goes to
Had
show
they not
you-
done that, I don't know what else they would
Luck
do.
plays a huge part in this too. When, all the years that the Browns had the number 1 overall pick, a guy like Joe Burrow wasn't sitting there. The one year the Bengals get it, there's Joe Burrow,
Yeah.
fresh for the taking,
Yeah.
an Ohio kid. It's just like,
Yeah.
sometimes you got to be lucky.